I came home unannounced on Christmas Eve. The air was knife-sharp, 31 degrees and falling. My breath crystallized as I walked up the path, gifts tucked under one arm. A surprise. I wanted to see her face light up. I wanted to see my daughter's eyes glow when I stepped through the door. But the driveway was empty of laughter. The house sat still, curtains drawn, lights faintly flickering inside. And then, her, my daughter, on the porch, small, shivering, no coat, no blanket. Her lips pale, trembling words I couldn't hear. I dropped the gifts, rushed to her, felt her body like ice in my arms. The sound from inside reached me then, music, soft jazz, laughter, a cork popping. I pressed my ear to the door. Her voice, my wife, laughing, warm, alive, while our child froze alone in the night. Something inside me bent, and then broke. I kicked the door open, wood splintered under my boot. The warmth of champagne and fire hit my face as I carried my daughter into the room. My wife's glass stopped halfway to her lips. Her eyes widened. I spoke 6 words. "You left her out to die." The silence after those words was absolute. Only the fire dared to crackle. She stammered, I didn't, she wanted to play. Lie. Instinctive, immediate. My daughter clung to me, half asleep, feverish. I wrapped her tighter in my coat, sinking into the couch, watching my wife avoid my eyes. She poured herself another glass. Her hands shook, but her voice steadied. "You're overreacting." Overreacting? A child left outside in freezing air? I said nothing. Silence has weight. It presses, it suffocates. And she felt it. I saw it in the twitch of her jaw, the restless flicker of her gaze toward the fireplace. Her laughter hadn't been for herself. It had been for someone else. I scanned the room. 2 glasses, 2 plates on the table. The faint trace of cologne that wasn't mine. My chest tightened. She had left our daughter outside, so no one would hear her cry, so her little hands wouldn't knock on the door and ruin the performance of her evening. And suddenly, it wasn't just negligence I smelled. It was betrayal, rot, disguised in perfume and champagne. The next morning I rose before dawn. She was asleep upstairs, tangled in silk sheets. My daughter lay beside me, fever fading under the weight of my arm. I slipped out quietly, began my work. Phone records, strange numbers, a trail that curved back to a man I knew by name only, an old friend from college. Her messages were hidden, but not well enough. Desire written in careless words, tonight, yours, always. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I built a file, a timeline, hotel receipts, photographs, names of restaurants we'd never been to, the champagne brand she suddenly claimed she liked. Each page I printed was another brick in the wall I was building around her, a wall of evidence, a prison of truth. I studied her in silence, watched how she smiled at me a little too wide, asked questions too sweet, tried to fold guilt into gestures of affection. She didn't know. She thought she still held the stage. But the audience had already seen behind the curtain, and I was waiting for the right night to close it on her forever. The file was thick when I finally slid it across the table. Christmas ornaments still dangled above us, hollow in their glitter. She looked down at it, eyes narrowing. "What's this?" "Your life," I said. She opened it, read. Her skin paled, her lips trembled. I watched her unravel, page by page. Her lover's texts, the hotel check-ins, a receipt for champagne bought the night our daughter nearly froze. She whispered, "You went through my—" I cut her off with a look. "I know everything." Her tears came fast, desperate. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean—" No. The evidence in her hands made the excuses rot on her tongue. I stayed still, composed, every ounce of rage folded neatly behind a calm mask. She begged, reached across the table. I didn't move. It was her turn to drown in silence. I reached for my phone, played the recording, her lover's voice, low and adoring, promising her things she had once promised me. She froze, eyes wide. The sound of her betrayal filled the room like smoke, choking her own breath. Then I said 6 more words. She knows what you really are. My daughter had woken. She stood in the doorway, blanket around her shoulders, staring at her mother with eyes that already understood too much. My wife broke then, collapsed into sobs, crawling toward the child she had abandoned. But my daughter stepped back, and I let the silence stay. That was my revenge. Not anger, not violence, just truth, cold and sharp, laid bare before the only witness that mattered. I packed slowly over the next day. My daughter sat on the bed, quiet, watching me. My wife begged, bargained, promised to change. Her words were smoke, dissipating before they reached me. By nightfall, I was gone. Driving away, my daughter asleep in the back seat, I stared at the dark road ahead. No pity, no sorrow, only clarity. Love doesn't survive neglect. It doesn't survive betrayal. It dies in silence, and that silence was already complete. The last thing I saw of her was the doorway where she had left our child to freeze, and I knew I would never come back.